Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation, folks. Let's have a big discussion. First and foremost, let's talk about President Biden. I'm asking, this is going to be the first part of a conversation I want to have with you as we ask the question, should President Biden appeal to young voters? As a new poll has shown that young voters are falling away from the president's support. So I'll give you the latest on that. Also, we're going to talk about the Israel-Hamas war and its impact on Black liberation as we talk to Pastor Wendell Griffin and Mr. Alan Bosak to talk about the issues of how this war is affecting our liberation globally. And later on, can we talk about the luxury of art? As I check in with visual artist Neil Anthony Edwards to talk about his new collection and what he wants us to take away from his depiction of our history. And later on, Jonathan Majors, should we really be upset that Disney decided to fire the high-profile actor after his guilty verdict? We'll have discussions, and I'm going to share with you my just unadulterated, unfiltered take on the situation. Stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. And I thank you all so much for joining me this afternoon. Folks, we got a lot to cover, but let's do this. First and foremost, we thank you for so much for checking us out as we're streaming live on a number of great platforms. First and foremost, you can check us out on our home platform, blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free, folks. Follow us on social media under Black Star Network. And of course, we ask for your financial support. So that's where we're starting there. Plus, we're also on Amazon, on your Amazon platform, Amazon News, or your Fire TV, on Amazon Prime Video. There's the latest information on how you can be a part, how you can take a look at that. We're on Prime Video app under live TV and news, so you can go to Amazon.com. Also, we are on Freevee, where you can find us on now under news right now. And it's available. We are available under Black Star Network. And finally, on Plex TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are streaming live there on Plex TV. All right, folks, let's jump right into it. I got a lot to cover. First and foremost, big shout out to my online culture crew that's doing it real big. There we go. We got people in the chat. Pastor Damon Blissett, I see you, big brother. Thank you once again. Deidre Hall, I see you. James Stone, I see you. Robin Welch. Hello, Culture Crew. Hello, Robin. Good to connect with you once again. Big brother Willie Frazier is back in the chat. As always, it's a pleasure to have you, big brother Willie. Monkey Confessions, you are there. Thank you so much for checking in. Miss Pauline Hurd, I see you. Raymond Harris, long live Black culture. Absolutely, brother Raymond. Thank you. Brian Christian, good afternoon to you, sir. And folks, as y'all enter that chat, make sure y'all hit that like button and get them algorithms working as we kick off this conversation here on Black Star Network under the culture. All right, folks, let's talk about President Biden first and foremost, as there has been a lot more discussion and conversation and even some concern around the president and his relationship to the next generation of young voters. I'm asking a question, should the president appeal to young voters? Because they don't have a favorable view of this president. I'm speaking of 18 to 34-year-olds. These are first-time voters, next generation voters. And when we have the voting conversation, and I'm gonna just say this is just like a part one of another conversation. I'm also going to see if my sister Suzette Speaks can kind of talk about this tomorrow. But there is a lot of people that are concerned that the president's appeal to the next generation is not strong at all. It's not strong at all. Let me share with you the latest coming from NBC News around this situation. In November, NBC News, the latest national poll showed that President Biden locked in close competition with former President Donald Trump at the moment for voters 18 to 34 years old, a sharp drop from the margins Biden enjoyed over Trump in the 2020 election, according to exit polling. According to the Democratic Party, to one voter, Camarina, a 24-year-old, she said, it's so complicated because it almost feels like if I were to give my vote for Biden, I will be showing the Democratic Party that what they are putting out is enough, which is the bare minimum, in my opinion. Now, here's the reason why we're seeing so many young voters kind of slipping away from the president. Voters cited a number of policy areas that disappointed them, including insufficient moves to address climate change and Biden's inability to fully cancel student loan debt or codify Roe v. Wade as the president deals with a closely divided Congress. Here's the straw that's going to break the camel's back in the eyes of young voters, folks. However, according to the latest poll from NBC News, Biden's response to the Israel-Hamas war may be having the greatest effect on his relationship with this voter bloc, that young voters, are not in agreement with the president on how he has been handling this situation. Now, again, this is going to be a little bit like a part one on this, but I wanted to throw this out there so you crew can get a take, just get a snapshot of what the president is up against. And here's why I'm asking the question: should Biden appeal to young voters? Because young voters, they are a significant block. 18 to 34-year-olds, they're a significant block. But this is also a group that can go up and down the scale. So if you are dealing with a group that's up and down the scale, it's more fall, I would say in some cases, that a lot of these young voters are probably falling into the category of being more independent or swing voters, right? But if they're going up and down the scale, should the president put money, time, resources, energy to try to get this block? And I know that everybody has been saying every single vote counts, which it does. But in this case, we're a little bit less than a year out from the election. Does the president need to put that support behind, or should he just keep working and chugging along, getting, bringing more black voters in under, bringing more Latino voters under? He should be getting folks from the LGBTQ community. He should be getting folks that have been voting and understand the complexities of having a very divided Congress. Whereas with younger voters, they may not see and understand. I'm just throwing this out there, folks. I'm just throwing this out there. What's your take on this? Post your comments on the Roland Martin's YouTube page that's streaming right there. And that's where you'll find the illustrious culture crew. McCole, my sister, you checked in. I'm so happy that you're joining us once again, McCole. You said again, Farajii, I say vote based on facts, not feelings. Democracy is at stake. Freedom is at stake. And I wonder if those 18 to 34-year-olds understand the very serious nature of this election. Look, I'm posing these questions. I want to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's go have one more segment to talk about this. But I'm saying that something that has to happen. And more importantly, the president has a big decision. Like, do you leave the next generation of voters for a minute? Just like, you know what? I don't know if I'll be able to give the time, the energy, the effort to win them over. I need to secure the folks that that have been riding along with me. You think that's the best strategy? We'll talk a little bit more about this on the other side. Post your comments in the chat and let's continue to stay tuned. We still got a lot more to cover here in this first half of the culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we are just briefly talking a little bit about this conundrum President Biden finds himself in as it relates to his relationship with the next generation of young voters. As a latest NBC News national poll shows that 18 to 34-year-olds are looking to fall away from supporting President Biden. And at this moment, they're in close competition with their supporters, in close competition with their support of former President Donald Trump. Crazy as it sounds, it's crazy as it sounds, but these next generation voters aren't impressed with the president. They don't feel like he's doing enough around climate change. They don't feel like he's done enough around Roe v. Wade. And the tipping point is his stance, his unequivocal support of Israel during the Israel-Hamas war. And this is becoming a real problem for the president. So I'm posing a question. Should the president kind of like, you know what, take that hit, focus more on other demographics, other voting blocks, and kind of work on that relationship down the road? Or should he put his energy, his resources, his time with this next generation of voters who I think are likened to like either independent or even swing voters? What's your take on this, crew? Post your comments, share your thoughts as we're streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube page, and I would love to hear what you have to say. I think it's Watika. Watika, thank you so much for checking in. You said majority of the youth get their political education from social media. I did this research myself. I'm not surprised. I would not be surprised to hear that. And I would love to see the numbers on that. But I think that, you know, that sounds about right. So the question then becomes, do we, and I know there are a lot of voting advocates in the chat. I know people who always talk about the importance of voting. But when you have a generation that seems like they're not as politically savvy, or you may feel that they're not seeing this election in its entirety in terms of what's at stake. What do you do? What do you tell the next generation if a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, 24-year-old, 25, a 30-year-old in your family says, well, I don't like President Biden's stance, I'm not feeling him on this, I'm not feeling him on that. What do you do? Do you teach them? Or do you say, you know what, to each his own, and kind of move forward? Let me know your take on this. Cindy D, my sister, good to connect with you once again, Cindy. You said democracy or fascism, that's the bottom line. All votes do matter. Reaching out to voters is reaching out to all. Use all resources to do so. So you're saying that President Biden should put some time, energy, and effort into making sure that he brings along this voting bloc with him, that he has some appeal to it. Okay. The ABX girl, good to connect with you. You said correct, Cindy D. We have to vote for those that must stay and have nowhere to go. Absolutely. Absolutely. Patricia Patterson, you put it out there very succinctly and bluntly. It's Biden or Trump. Do you want Trump? Mr. Trump, y'all know Mr. Trump. And we're going to talk a little bit about his comments in the next segment, talking about the whole immigration and poisoning the blood of the American people. Woo! That's something in and of itself. But that's what it looks like it's coming down to. K Hunt, you checked in. Thank you so much. You said the Democrats need to nominate someone else. I don't think that's going to happen. That's not happening. I don't like to think and wish, shoulda, coulda, woulda. That's not happening. They're going to put their support behind Biden. That's their president. That's the president. That's the person in power. That's going to be their person in this election. Anthony Johnson, you say it's time that Joe Biden and company should go. Okay, I hear you. Let me see here. CC Knight, you said once we have a conversation, we decide who we're voting for. There are no gray areas. Again, y'all, 18 to 34, you're talking about that next generation of voters. And see, my thinking is this, folks, very quickly. My thinking is that this would open up the door for some generational conflict, right? Because if you got young people who saying, nope, I'm going to withhold my vote, this president is not saying enough to appeal to me. And then you have older folks who are 40, 45, 50, 60 years old and saying, look, you got to take the good with the bad. Yeah, you may not like him on this decision, but he has trying to do this work on this area, this area, this area. It might create a generational conflict. Y'all, anybody else might consider that? Well, we'll think about it. Vincent Brown, you said, why are you putting stuff like this out? You're inviting some voters to say no to Biden. You don't see Republicans doing this kind of stuff. This is not propaganda. This is not about propaganda. This is about having a conversation about the whole thing. And see, look, Vincent, let me just explain this very quickly. If you can't take getting information about the other side, then I got a question, like how strong are you in your stance or in your decision making? If you don't want people to hear both sides of the conversation, then that's a problem. If I'm sure in my decision, whatever that decision is, who I'm going to vote for, whatever the case may be, where I stand on an issue, and I hear the other side, that shouldn't be a threat. It should either enlighten me, right? It should empower me. It should make me feel like, okay, I made the right decision, or it should make me think. But we can't be in that space. I'm sorry. I need to hear both sides. If y'all looking for like that one-sided type of situation, like, no, we just want to talk about the good, that's called propaganda. That's not really having a conversation about the issues. And that's not what we do here on The Culture. I don't know about any other spaces here on the Black, or not on the Black Star Work, because we're going to have them conversation, but we got to have a full conversation if you're talking about empowering people, encouraging people to think critically, Vincent. That's why we're putting this out there. That's why we're putting it out there. And let's not act like this isn't a reality, that you have 18 to 34-year-olds who are part of your family that you're not having conversations with. How many of you are having conversations with younger members of your family about the severity, about the seriousness of this upcoming election? So we should be wanting people to think. This is not about, let's just put out stuff that sounds good. Let's put out reality, because I'm tired of having sugarcoat stuff, especially with Black folks. We got to sugarcoat stuff and make it easy and more palatable. That's not the case here. Not the case at all. Willie Frazier, you said the younger generation need to feel the lash when their juvenile records follow them the rest of their life, when Republicans ban reparations, when their parents are living with them, they'll see. Ooh. I hear that. Mingley Natasha Surge, you said, I don't need to hear crap about Trump. I hear that. And ABX Girl, you agree with Brother Willie. Facts, Willie Frazier. Absolutely. So we're in a different space. I got to take another pause, but we're in a different space now. Just know that you got 18 to 34-year-olds on the fence. You got some Black people on the fence. You have Arab Americans on the fence about this. So look. We got to be able to have these conversations. We can't act like we're living in some Black Mirror Twilight Zone space here. This is the reality. People are not happy with this president. It's as much as we like to believe that, oh, okay, everything is going to go well. You have to empower people. You got to give people a chance to think on their own. And that's part of this voting education, because if we're serious about educating people to vote, and if we're serious about encouraging people, if young people find themselves, if they vote differently from what you're voting for, but they take part in the process, they're going out getting people registered, but they vote differently from you, do you get mad at it? Do you say this is not right? Do you tell them they're stupid for voting that way? What do you do? What do we do? And so that's the place that we find ourselves in. We got to take a quick pause. I just want to put that out there so we can have that beginning parts of the conversation. And of course, we're going to continue to have this discussion about the relationship between the president and the next generation of voters. But it's certainly something to think about. Folks, stay with me. I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's have a conversation about the Israel-Hamas war. I'm going to talk to two dynamic Black men about this whole situation, and more importantly, its impact on this idea of Black liberation, global Black liberation. Stay with me. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Before we get into the other conversation, I saw that a lot of folks are checking in, and I truly appreciate all of the new voices that we have in the chat right now. Folks, you can join us in the chat as we're streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube page. Just go to Roland Martin on YouTube, check in the, you'll see that the show is streaming live, and you can jump right in and chat. And we got a number of people, new voices, and some of my legacy culture crew members that are just in there having conversations about this piece around the youth, the relationship with the next generation young voters with President Biden. It's very fascinating, folks. It's very, very fascinating because this group, this voting bloc could create some ripple, some issues down in how we go about having conversations about getting folks registered, getting folks engaged. Because a lot of these young people, and based on this NBC article, folks, and this national poll that they put out, a lot of these young people are actually involved in their communities. They're seeing things in their communities. One of the things I think we need to be very, very careful about is that if you're encouraging people to go out and to vote and to get involved and to participate in all of these things, right? Voter education, voter participation, voter enrollment, all of these things, that you, one, don't make people feel small or act as if they're stupid because they may have a different set of politics than you personally. So, we have to keep that in mind as well, that you don't want to come across as that way, especially for the next generation, right? Especially for new voters, first-time voters. This might be their second election that they're voting in, so they're still kind of first time. They're just learning about their personal politics and where they stand on all of these issues. And the last thing that they need, especially within Black communities, is that you got other Black folks that are saying, well, I know you're a first-time voter, but you don't know what you're talking about. I know you're a first-time voter, and your thinking is a little bit off. Because we do have to, if we're talking about keeping the same group of folks engaged, then you got to empower them to be able to make their decision. That they feel confident and they feel comfortable that they can make this decision, and that their parents or grandparents, aunts and uncles, those adults that are in their lives, aren't going to look at them like they're crazy just simply because they have a different view of the world and what they think is important versus what they don't think is important compared to us. So I think that's the first thing. Then the second thing is that if you want people to get involved, then it should just be across the board. Now, whether they get involved with voting, whether they get involved with canvassing, whether they get involved with however they want to get involved, that we don't diminish that, right? Because that's the whole point about this whole process of registering new voters. If it's just about getting people to vote the way you want them to vote, then that's a whole different conversation. That's a very, very different conversation. Karen, you checked in, my sister. You said very important for Farajii must educate without insulting new and undecided voters. Absolutely. I can't agree with you more there, Karen. We want to insult the new voter. The young voter, right? They come into the thing, okay, they don't know all about it and all of that. And some of the adults, come on, that's like acting like, come on. Some of these younger folks are a little bit more politically savvy than some adults in some areas, right? But we don't want to come across as insulting, you know what I'm saying? And helping them. Now, here's the thing. What about if those young voters say, well, I don't like Biden, I don't like the way things are in this country, and I want to move into a totally different political space. We should be advocating for socialism. I think capitalism sucks. Or we should be advocating for this. Like, young voters are going to bring a different energy, right? And I think it's important for those of us who are, in the space or on platforms, or we're working with young people, right? We have to look at this group of 18 to 34-year-olds and proceed with caution and to be sensitive about what their view is of the world. Like, really think, if you were 25 years old nowadays, right? How would you see this world? And if you think back too, here's the other thing. And then we're going to take a couple of more comments. When you were 25 or when you were 24 years old, were you actually thinking about voting? I'm talking about some of us. Some of us were. It depends on where you come from, who was around you, what type of household you grew up in, what type of spaces you were allowed in. When you were in your early 20s, were you thinking about voting? You thinking about something else? I'm seeing young people becoming more politically aware at 18 years old, 16 years old, than I've seen some adults come into their political consciousness. And I think that we have to keep that in mind. This is a totally different group of voters. This is a totally different generation. And they have a different energy. They see the world differently. And how do we, the older folks, the adults in the room, how do we handle that? All right, let me go to what I hear from you. Corinna, my sister, I'm glad Corinna checked in, y'all. Y'all know Corinna, my voting advocate. She comes on here on Fridays, man. I love talking to my sister Corinna here and what she got to say. Corinna, you said, Karen, I agree, sis. It's tiring, however, that the folks we must educate are prone to misinformation due to be weak and easily influenced. Shaking my head, so much to unlearn and learn at the same time. Who are we talking about, Corinna? Adults or these young people? Who are we talking about here? Because I know some adults that can fall in the exact same category. Y'all be having real serious conversations in the chat and to unlearn and to learn. So who we talking about here, Corinna? I think I know who you're talking about, but I'm just throwing this out there. Like, adults are in the same space. Adults are in the same space. So we're talking about the treatment of the new voter. Again, I'm going back to that question. Let's post that question, Lise. Should President Biden appeal to this voting bloc? He got to put something. He got to put something in the block, right? He's got to figure out, like, how do I get them without putting so much resources in a block that may not necessarily ride with him for this election? How would y'all move forward on that? That's the big question. Let me do this. Let me take one more quick pause, and then we're going to continue the conversation on the other side. And of course, I'm going to get your comments on this. Stay with me. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about this because I'm seeing some great comments from you in the chat as we're streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube chat and Roland Martin's Facebook page. Y'all can, if you're on Facebook, you can still post, and we'll make sure that we get your comments mentioned as well. But I brought up in the last segment about, where were we when we were 21, 22, 25 years old, right? Were we even thinking about politics? Some of us were. I see some of you have posted stories like you, Davey. You said, I turned 25 last election and voted for Biden. He lost my vote, Davey Floating. You said he lost your vote when he deported 20,000 Haitians from Del Rio to Haiti after it got hit with an earthquake. He got a Haitian press secretary, though. But he lost your vote. You turned 25 the last election. You voted him in. So you're in this block, Davey. But he lost your vote. And maybe you don't have to tell us, but is there any other issue? You bring up the Haitian issue, which is a lot of these young people in this, according to this poll, they didn't bring up the Haiti issue. But this is something that's near and dear to your heart. But were you able to look past that to possibly vote for the president? Are you able to say, okay, let me, yeah, he did this, but there's some better things he's done only for like you said, he got a Haitian press secretary and all of that. So how do you reconcile that within yourself? I would love to get your take on that. And I'm glad that you posted that, Davey, because I didn't know that. So that gives me some context as well. Corinna, you asked the question, what do you gain from withholding your vote? Talk to me. Well, here's the one thing that we often tell people, and I think we got to be honest with ourselves. Who said it? Because I just saw someone mention this. When we say to people, this is y'all hear me? Y'all listening to me real close, right? When we tell people vote your interest, when you tell the next generation vote your interest, and they don't see President Biden as that guy who speaks and advocates and can move on their interests. Y'all see what I'm getting at? So if you tell the next generation, hey, look, man, you got to vote your voice, you got to vote your interests, you got to vote your values, you got to do what's important, you have to get involved based upon where you stand, and that stand is not in alignment with where you may stand. Then what happens? Then what happens? Are we going to start saying to the next generation, to young voters, new voters, your interests are messed up? Are we going to start saying that? Because if we start saying that, now we start telling people who and what to vote for. And that doesn't sound like empowerment to me, folks. That sounds like me telling you what to do, not you figuring out what's important to you. That doesn't sound empowering. Brother Damon, you said, Brother Damon Blissett, you said, Farajii, this new generation experienced the George Floyd worldwide protests. Our Gen X didn't have that. That's what makes this new generation different, my opinion. I agree with you. I agree with you. Some of those young people who were participated in those protests 3 years ago, right? Some of them young people were, boom, their politics was activated. I know in Baltimore, when the murder of Freddie Gray happened, we saw a whole lot of young people hitting the streets. I'm talking about teenagers, 15, 16 years old. I even saw some as young as 13. Like, you saw a whole lot of young people in the streets involved in the protests, on the front lines during the day, at night, late at night. You're talking about when those things started happening, when that big moment with Freddie Gray, we were on the ground, and you saw young people out there, man, getting activated, right? They were getting involved, and they can, and in some cases, some of those young people took a moment like that, whether it's Freddie Gray, whether it's George Floyd, whether it's whatever moment that has been happening, and they became activated as a result of those major moments. And as a result of that, they started to work on their politics. I mean, we got to look at the next generation and say, okay, they might think differently, but something good is still happening here. Kevin Boyd, you checked in. You said Biden ain't perfect, but sitting out is not an option, and Trump is a step in the wrong direction. We're trying to create a path. Withholding our vote costs us more than anybody. If not Biden, then who? Then you know what? Here's my recommendation on that. And I agree with you there, Kevin. So I agree with you, right? There's certainly a lot at stake, I think, and I'm processing this as I'm sharing this with you folks. I think that we don't put that type of pressure on the next generation, on the new voter, the young voter, right? That's too much. That's too much. Let's wake up these old heads, right? These older folks, right? Who have been involved in voting and all of that, who have been engaged in some of these election cycles over the past 10 to 15 to 20 years, right? Get them back into the mix of things, because the next generation don't deserve to have that weight. Like, oh my gosh, the weight of the election, this thing between democracy and fascism, they don't deserve to have that weight placed on their shoulders, because guess what? That looks like those of us who have been blazing the path, we didn't do our job. We put the weight of democracy on young people instead of the weight of democracy on those of us, on conscious adults. Come on. So we didn't do our job. So we got a lot of work to do. And we can't put that. I think this period might be a period of real education, right, Corinna? Like, this period might be a period where we're helping, teaching them about the issues and going back and forth with them and say, look, let's look at the issues. Let's look at the pros and cons. And I'm not talking about you going up to some random young person. I'm talking about having these conversations with those young people in your families that you have direct contact with, that you have influence with, that you have a say with. You start there. But I don't think we should put the weight, democracy versus fascism is on the line if these young people don't get it right. That's not fair. Because they didn't make this situation that we're in. Why is democracy and fascism and why is democracy in peril? You can't put that on no 21-year-old, 25-year-old, 30-year-old. You can't do that. That's not fair. There has been a bunch of causes that led to this effect. So we got to clean it up first. And we can't bring them into the madness and expect them to save the day. Look, I got to take another quick pause. When we come back, let's continue to talk about this and other topics I got ready for y'all. Stay with me, folks. It's the culture here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America rolling.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Man, oh man, I want to move forward, but so many great ideas. That's why I love this show and this platform we got here today, folks, because so many of you are bringing up so many phenomenal ideas. And I'm like you, King. This is the debate, man. Like we gotta have these debates, and I don't care about this, I'm very concerned, and I'm more, just encouraging that we have these conversations, because I don't know what happens on other spaces, but I just know here on The Culture, on the Black Star Network, we're going to talk this thing through. And I'm going to do my best to throw some ideas out there and to moderate and to facilitate and to hold space with any one of you who bring some ideas to the table. I'm not running from no ideas. I'm not running from somebody out battling. That's silly. That's silly. We got too much on the line. We got too much at stake. We're talking about the future of our people. We're talking about the future of this country. This requires debates. And I know that for some of us, we love to hear the talking heads. We want people to tell us all the time what to do, how to move, how to think, and all of those things. That's what we've been conditioned as, especially for Black folks in this country. We've been conditioned to move in it. And the funny thing about this is that people often say, well, where's Black leadership? Black leadership needs to do this. And we do have phenomenal Black leadership. Our leaders who rise up from the ranks of us are some of the best individuals in the world, scholars, researchers, thinkers, all of that, right? And some of us still don't want to follow them. We talk Black leadership, but we don't want to follow. So many of us have embraced this idea of individualism, right? And this idea of, well, you do you and I'm going to do me. And when it comes to certain things like this, when you are confronted with very serious realities that are facing, that is threatening and serves as a risk for our sustainability as a people and sustainability of our communities, then we got to have these big conversations. We got to have them. And they can be messy. They may not be on the same page, but I'm tired of us expecting someone else to solve our problems when we have the power, we have the intelligence, we have the resources to come to some solution on our own. So I love it. I absolutely love it. Let me go back to what many of you are checking in and talking about. And I want to get more thoughts on this. Who did I see this? And folks continue to post your comments in the chat. Cammie in Philly. Cammie, I appreciate you. You said the civil rights movement was all about the young, along with protests in Vietnam. The brunt of political change has always fallen on the young. And I agree with that. Here's where the civil rights movement, I think this is one of the great things that the civil rights movement understood and got right. And where we can get right. The civil rights movement had a cadre of young soldiers, right? Young freedom fighters and young liberation movement workers, right? They had those young people. We could say like a Reverend Al Sharpton. I'm just giving you a little bit of the names. Reverend Al Sharpton. They just did a movie about Bayard Rustin and many others, right? Young people who were moving along, you know? But the point is that they had a young cadre. But behind the young cadre were older strategists, veterans of the struggle. See, that's what made the civil rights movement so effective. Now, they had their infighting, trust and believe. They didn't have that was there, that was present. But they had an infrastructure where, as the scriptures say, young for warfare, the older for to give advice, to give direction, to help with the strategy. They had that. That was the beauty of the civil rights movement. So you had young people on the front lines, but they were supported to a degree. They were supported by civil rights organizations, NAACP and other SCLC and other civil rights organizations, right? They were supported. Even with the Black Panther Party, they had those young dynamic leaders of Fred Hampton, Huey Newton, Bobby Seale. They had the dynamic women of the Black Power movement, the Angela Davises, the Elaine Browns, and all of those dynamic, but they were supported in some way from other people, right? There was this sense of community, right? Like we weren't all on the same page about every such thing, but we didn't want to see one person fall victim to the hands of oppression and white supremacy and all of this other stuff that we're fighting against. So we're talking about, and to your point, Cammie, that yeah, they had those young people there, and those young people had to call out. But what brought those young people to the forefront, right? They were fearless. When you think about, the history of those who walked the Selma Bridge and all of that, just think about the very comprehensive history of the civil rights movement. These young people were in the deep South. They were doing all of these things, and they were fearless about it. And we have that same spirit today among this next generation. But then I see some adults a little scared, or some adults are very comfortable. Some adults are like, don't rock the boat too much. I'm not talking about within the Black community. So we're seeing something. You're seeing something. Now, Big Brother Willie, you say you think Kwame Ture cared if it wasn't fair. Did Fran Hampton care if it was fair? No, they tried to make it fair out, at least less painful for the community. You're absolutely right. But we're in a very different time. The games and the rules of the game has changed tremendously. Some of the same strategies, some of the same tactics, but the rules of the games have changed tremendously. And that is the thing. Like there is a different level. Like the underlying thing that we're seeing that we saw back then is the sense of Blackness. what does it mean to be Black? Like, you know, some people would go as far as say, back then we knew who the enemy was. Now we don't know who the enemy is, right? And so the sense of Blackness, the sense of like, you know what, I'm doing this for the people, I'm doing this for the culture, and all of those things, you know. But it's that same spirit today, but we do understand that some people can be bought and sold. Some people can be manipulated. Some people can speak one thing and then do something else. You know, that level of commitment, right? That level of commitment. So we're talking about a different culture, and we can't act as if that this culture is not different. This culture is very different. The politics of this country is different. The way government relates is different. So we have to adjust according to the changes. We got to adjust according to the moment and to the time. Because if we don't look at, well, okay, what time is it for real, then how are we going to make sure that our actions are in alignment with the time? If we're doing if we're using taxes from the 50s and 60s and 70s, but this is 2023, God willing, we'll be making the transition into 2024, then we can find ourselves, our actions to be out of time with the way things are going right now. This is the conversation in this country is about the sustainability, it's about preserving democracy. The conversation was different back then. That was about civil rights. That was about making sure that Black people are seen as human beings. That was about making sure that all people are seen. But this is about the very fundamental essence of our government, democracy. That's a heavy load to bear. And again, I don't think we should put that on young people. I think we got to look at the adults. What happened? What happened for those past 50 and 60 years? How did we get into this place? Now, we don't have to go into no long diatribe. We don't have to go into no big, create a whole dissertation around it. We know what happened, but we have to figure out, and I'm saying as Black folks in this country, Black leadership in this country, we got to figure out, okay, do we keep going down this one path, or do we start creating an alternative path? And the next generation is trying to say, I think I'm starting to see an alternative path. And what if that alternative path is not in agreement with the path that some of us want to stay on? Look, I got to take another quick pause. Stay with me. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. Let me bring in two brothers who can give us some further insight on this particular topic and to give us some insight as to what we're seeing with this Israel-Hamas war as it is and its impact on the Black liberation struggle globally. I want to bring back and I want to welcome back to the airwaves of the culture here on the Black Star Network our brother, Judge Dr. Wendell Griffin. Judge Griffin, who is a retired state judge, and he is a historian, he's an activist, and he's an author as well. And I'm really, really excited to have him on. And also joining me is Mr. Alan Bosak, who's the co-author of the book with Judge Griffin. And I'm so excited. Yeah, put that up, Pastor. Parables, Politics, and Prophetic Faith. There it is. So we got Alan on the line as well. Brother Alan, we have Brother Alan with us today. We want to try to get him on and then looking at this. But Judge Griffin, again, welcome back to the culture. I always appreciate having you on, big brother. First and foremost, what do you make of this? Because you actually, not only are you a state judge, you've been dealing with this voting issue in this country for many years. We've been talking about the president is confronted with the fact that 18 to 34-year-olds, that voting bloc, according to a latest poll from NBC News, it's slipping. His support among that group of young people is slipping. Some young people say, Judge Griffin, that it's because of his stance on, his inability to get some stuff done with the student loan debt situation. Some people say that he's not doing enough around climate change. Some people are saying that the economy is still kind of shaky and uncertain, even though there has been some gains. But I think the tipping point has been this stance on the Israel-Hamas war, the stance that he has taken, the unequivocal support that his administration has given to the state of Israel. And now the president is feeling the heat from the American people, especially the next generation, from all cross-racial backgrounds, who are like, we're putting money into this situation. They haven't even finished dealing with the Russia-Ukraine situation. But there are young people who want to not vote for this president. And I want to go back and I want to get your take on this, Judge, because I want to go to this quote that we found from NBC News, where this 24-year-old living in the Bay Area said, it's so complicated because it almost feels like if I were to give my vote for Biden, I will be showing the Democratic Party that what they are putting out is enough, which is the bare minimum, in my opinion.
Brother Farajii, thank you very much for having me back
yes,
on.
Sir.
I look forward to being on with you and hoping that Dr. Buzak joins us shortly. But I think that the person from the Bay Area nailed it. And I think that, if I may say so, it's about time that we begin to listen more closely to the young people. The young people have been saying this and speaking up since 2008. Please remember that it was the young people who turned out in big numbers that elected Barack Obama. It was the young people that turned out in big numbers that made Bernie Sanders' campaign take off and really challenge Hillary Clinton. It was the young people. It was the young people. And did I say it right? It was the young people. Martin Luther King led his civil rights movement with the young people. The young people are speaking, and the young people are now speaking louder, and they have a bigger voice because no longer they need to wait for the newspapers to pick them up. They have their own voice. They go on TikTok, on Instagram, on all the social media platforms, and they self-publish. And so when young people see the Israel-Hamas war, and they recall that it was the people in Palestine who connected with them straight up when Michael Brown got murdered in Ferguson, and folks in Palestine were getting on what now X was then Twitter and said, this is how you handle the tear gas. Folks in Palestine were telling young folks in Ferguson, this is how you handle the tear gas. That is a relationship that is not recent. That is a relationship that has now been going on for a decade. And they see Barack Obama's vice president, now president, doing essentially the same thing to the people in Gaza that Darren Wilson did to Michael Brown in Ferguson. And it defies logic that the Democratic Party would think that young folks, A, would not notice, B, would not be highly perturbed, I'm trying to keep it real, and C, not transfer that irritation into activism and say, no, we are not going to drop our ballot in the behalf of this kind of hateful stuff. We're going to explore options. And let's just be clear. They know they don't have to go there.
And so, Pastor, how do you reconcile where you have the next generation, young people who are on that vibe, they're on that wave that you just explained, but then you have the older ones of us, among us, right, who are like, look, man, like this is not one of those elections that we need to play around. And I think that comes from a very real concern that if Trump gets back into office, we're going to be going backwards at least 50 years, right, from some people. But young people are willing to risk it. Young people are willing to say, look, hey, the president is not talking to me when he talks about this issue or that issue. I don't see my voice being listened to. I don't hear my interest being addressed when he talks to that. So some young people are willing to say, you know what, bump it. So be it. I'm going to risk it. And then you have black folks who are like, some other older black folks like, man, hell no, we can't risk that. So how do we reconcile between those two places?
Well, I like to remind my generation, I'm 71 years old. The young folks have more at risk than I do. Because when if they're talking about 50 years is not what I'm going to deal with. The young folks have more skin in the game than I do. The young folks have to deal with the climate messed up that I'm not going to have to deal with 50 years from now. The young folks deal with the voting rights situation 50 years from now. The young folks have to deal with this. And if the young folks have said, listen, we have looked at the situation and we are not willing to bet on the same politics from the Democrats that has got us in this mess to take us out of this mess, then I can't say to them, hey, my 71 years and my life expectancy that's less than 50 weighs more than your life expectancy that's more than 50. Because quite frankly, they have more skin in the game. Now, that's the way I see it.
All right, let me take this one question from our culture crew member, Pastor. Brother Willie Fraser said, ask the pastor, do young people understand foreign policy? What Israel is to the United States as far as an ear to combat terrorism that comes from that way? do you think that they are able to really educated enough to vote on something that they may not have no full understanding of?
Oh, they understand terrorism quite well because the Palestinians are being subjected to terrorism. The Palestinians are being subjected to Israeli terrorism every day and have been for the last 75 years. They have had their neighborhoods bombed. They have had their houses bulldozed. They have had their young people detained. Palestinians know that, hey, walking while black is troublesome here, walking while Palestinian is troublesome all throughout Palestine every day. And they know about segregation. So no, we shouldn't pretend the young folks don't know about foreign policy. I mentioned the connection between Palestine and Michael Brown on purpose because those young people in Ferguson are well aware that what goes on in U.S. policy in this country affects the world. Policing in this country is driven by policing in Israel. I just said something. Check out now. A lot of your police forces are going to Israel and getting their police policies. Check and see if they have gone to a policing institute sponsored by the state of Israel. And so young folks understand this. They understand the fact that the same Israeli politics that are producing the sorrowful situations in Gaza, I mean, that's genocide. That's the same kind of stuff that happened to Emmett Till. I mean, we are watching daily hundreds of Emmett Tills going on. And so for folks to say young folks don't get it, that's insulting to the young people. And quite frankly, they should be insulted because they are engaged and they're trying to figure out, hey, why do you think we don't know? The better question is, why don't you get it?
I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, Pastor, we're going to continue the conversation, and hopefully we're going to be able to get Dr. Alan Bosak to be a part of the discussion. Folks, we're continuing our conversation with Pastor Wendell Griffin as we talk about the Israel-Hamas war and its impact on Black liberation globally. We'll continue that discussion on the other side and, of course, with you. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, We have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, and I've been chopping it up with my brother, my friend here, who has been giving us some insight as to what we're seeing as we're talking about the Israel-Hamas war and the impact that it has on the global Black liberation struggle. And throwing it in the mix, still continuing the conversation about young people and their support for the president that we kicked off the show with, and how this is creating a perfect storm for something major to happen, folks. I am convinced, Pastor, that in come 2024, we're going to see some major things happening politically, and socially, right? Where the same type of moment that we saw back in 2020, where how we now reference the 2020 protests, I think we're going to see some major moments coming in 2024, and maybe around this Israel-Hamas war. But I think something is brewing, because I think people are at a high level of dissatisfaction with the current order of things. Now, the Associated Press, they did a piece on this, and Lisa, if you can show the headline for this article, I want people to really see how much of what Pastor Griffin and what we've been talking about has just rose to the top as this has been bubbling, because the Black liberation struggle is now getting more, I would say, more exposure as in light because of this situation in Israel and Hamas. So if we could pull that up, but it talks about how Black Americans who are taking trips to Israel and to Palestine, Pastor, and they're seeing it for the first time. They're seeing it in real time. The disparities, the tyranny, the oppression, the injustice that the Palestinian people have been dealing with. And I know some people, some Black folks will say, well, that's Palestine, y'all talking all of that and stuff. Well, let me ask y'all a question. And Pastor, maybe you can answer it. What group, which Black organization, which Black gathering actually has a foreign policy program or agenda that we can kind of hold on to at this particular time? Because as much as we're talking about a Black economic agenda, we're talking about the social contract. I remember Brother Tavis Smiley was doing that for some time, talking about what is the Black foreign policy agenda? Where can we go to that? Who can we reference that to?
Brother, thank you for that question, because that's spot on. I am co-chair with Bishop Leah Daughtry of the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference. It was organized by Dr. Jeremiah Wright out of Chicago, Reverend Freddie Haynes out of Dallas, and Dr. Iva Carruthers out of Chicago. This is a Black interdenominational Christian group of clergy and lay people who are very much involved in the foreign policy issue. And for decades, we organized in 2004. From almost Jump Street, the Proctor Conference was down with Palestine. We have had a solidarity with Palestine. You go to our website, www.sdpconference.info. There's all kind of resources on Palestine. We are dealing with this issue because we realize there is a relationship between U.S. domestic policy towards people of color, to include Black folks, and U.S. global policy toward people of color, to include Palestine, the continent of Africa, the Caribbean, and South and Central America. And let's just put it this way. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., may he rest in peace and power, was saying this, and folks were not paying him attention. If folks would do something besides read his I Have a Dream speech, and would actually read his work, they would realize Dr. King was talking about these issues a year to the day before he died. That's why he got killed. Because he was saying, hey, there's something really messed up about a domestic policy that prohibits Black folks from having civil rights in this country, but wants to send Black folks to kill brown and yellow folks in Southeast Asia. Talking about the way that the money was being used to oppress poor people. Dr. King was down with this, and so was Brother Malcolm. Brother Malcolm was down with this. Folks need to pay attention and wake up. The young people are with it. Brother Malcolm understood that white supremacy does not have territorial boundaries. It is global. Imperialism in this country, in the guise of white supremacy, shows up in Israel as Zionism. And to the point you made at the beginning of the question, folks who go to the Palestinian area, I don't call it the Middle East because I asked the question that Brother Dimitri Behav, a Palestinian Christian, asked, east of what? It's only the Middle East if you're looking at it from Europe. It's only the Middle East if you have a colonized mindset. It is north of Africa. It is east of the Mediterranean. It is south. It is west of Asia. So to call it the Middle East only talks about putting it in European context. When I went to Palestine, Israel in December of 2015 and stepped out of the airport in Tel Aviv, I had a PTSD moment because I felt like I was back in Jim Crow, Arkansas. I was born in 1952. I grew up, my first years were spent on Jim Crow. Until I got to Palestine, I did not see separate highways for folks. There are separate highways for Palestinians and Israelis. Israelis have walled off whole cities. They have built walls through Palestinian communities. We talk about redlining in this country. They have concrete lining in Palestine. And guess what? The companies that are building this are U.S. companies. Caterpillar, Bank America is funding it. Walmart is over there. Travelocity is over there. Please understand that this is global. And if we understand that there are organizations like the Proctor Conference, like Black PAC and Black Church PAC, there's a Black Church PAC that actually sat down and talked about administration and told them, you have an issue with us because we don't see justice in your agenda. When you talk about going over, Biden flew over to Israel, got off a plane and did a bear hug with Benjamin Netanyahu and hasn't set the first foot in the occupied territories. He hadn't set the first foot in Gaza, and folks are dying. Almost 8,000 babies have been killed. And we supplied the bullets and the bombs. And so, young folks are righteously indignant, and they're not the only ones. I got gray hair, and I'm righteously indignant. Between the young folks and such gray-haired folks, Biden's in trouble, and he can't trot out Kamala Harris and Lloyd Austin and his usual black folks to do this because, see, we see babies dead. When you're bombing churches in Palestine and black Christians know about churches being bombed in this country, and you are giving the money to the bombers, eventually the folks begin to connect the dots. This is KKK 2.0.
Pastor, I want to jump in here because I know we're short on time, and we'll certainly continue the conversation. But I want to kind of get your take on something that when we're talking about this Israel-Hamas war and the Black liberation movement, the Black liberation movement today is much different than what we saw during the Civil Rights period, during the Black Power movement. The Black liberation movement today is supported by some white nonprofit organizations or some philanthropists. And one of the things that was brought up in this Associated Press piece, it was talking about how because Black Americans are now starting to see the similarities of the struggle between the Palestinian people and our people on this side, that it's causing a strain with Jewish Americans. It's causing a strain with the overall relationship that we have with Jews, especially in places of philanthropy and arts and entertainment and whatnot. How do you address that issue? How does Jewish Americans address that issue? And how can Black folks address that issue? Because the relationship between Blacks and Jews has not always been a mutually beneficial relationship in this country. So how do we start to address that, especially when the Jewish American folks start to say, hey, we're losing influence, we're losing the grip on this next generation of young Black people?
Well, the Jewish community has to be viewed the same way the Black community is. It is not just with one voice. There are Zionists in the Jewish community who very much are in favor of what the Israeli regime is doing. And the Zionist lobby, AIPAC, the AIPAC is one of the biggest lobbies in DC. It is not only working in DC politically, but they're also working on Black HBCU campuses. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Black young people, sending them to Israel, trying to indoctrinate them in their policies. But they are not the only voice. More and more young Jewish people, Jewish Voices for Peace, are really raising questions, and they are they're raising protests, and they're saying, no, don't count on this. And we need to understand this. Anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. Let me just say it again.
Yes.
Anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. To say anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, it makes as much sense as saying being anti the KKK is against anti-white folks. Hello. Mm-hmm. That's just wrong. It's dumb. But it is intentional because there is a deliberate effort to hold the Black and the progressive mindset in line with the Zionist mindset. But young Jewish people across the board and LGBTQ people are raising questions. I understand that there are those who are saying we have had a historically strong relationship between the Black and Jewish communities, but as you said, Brother Farajii, that has not always been so. I am old enough to remember that there were some Jewish voices who were very, very uncooperative when affirmative action was an issue. Because they were talking about quotas. And they were the ones who were anti-affirmative action. I am old enough to remember when it was possible for you to be Black and suffer discrimination from Jewish people because they were getting the benefit of whiteness. Hello. As long as they did not violate the segregation mindset. And so we shouldn't think of the Jewish voice as having one voice here. Finally, I think we need to learn from our young people, but also learn the truth about our history. I mentioned Dr. King. I mentioned Brother Malcolm. I mentioned them intentionally. I mentioned Brother Harry Belafonte. May he rest in peace. I mentioned these folks. I mentioned Dr. Jeremiah Wright. I mentioned Cornel West. Let me say Cornel West. Cornel West is running for president, y'all. And he has been strong in favor of the Palestinians and been calling out the Israeli apartheid regime for decades. I do have on my calendar a book that you see in the background. Cornel West, Democracy Matters. Read that book. Cornel West in 2004 was calling out Zionism in Jewish life and Christian nationalism in this country. We got Ron Johnson in the Congress and Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel are doing the same hateful stuff, but Joseph Biden is making it effective because he's in the White House. If Joe Biden stopped the bullets and the bombs going over, Israel would have a tough time. Last thing I'll say is this. Kind of funny that Biden got behind the folks on Ukraine and said, we got to stand up for Ukraine when Russia was invading Ukraine. But he hadn't said a mumbling word about how Israel invaded Gaza, committed genocide against Gaza, told the Gazans to go to South Gaza and then bombed them in South Gaza, blowing up babies, even killed Israelis wearing the white flag. And I haven't heard people say anything about this. So we need to understand that the young people are awake, the young folks are alert, and the young folks vote. Demographically, the young folks outnumber the elders now. Let me say it again. If the young folks turn out to vote, they can turn this thing around. And that's what scares the pants off of these folks now in the White House, because Democrats need to have black folks, young folks, and they need to have labor folks, and they are losing all three of those constituencies.
There it is. Pastor, I got to stop you right there just for the interest of time. As always, brother, you're dropping some jewels. Good job. You're dropping some jewels. I truly appreciate you, Pastor. We're going to try to bring Dr. Alan Bosak back and try to get him back on the next time. But I truly, truly appreciate you. Retired state judge. He's the pastor. He is the author of the book, Prophecies. Let me make sure I get that title right, because that thing is heavy. Pull that book up. Parables, Prophecies, Parable Politics and Prophetic Faith. Parable Politics and Prophetic Faith. So make sure y'all check that out. Our brother, Pastor Wendell Griffin, who's checking in here on The Culture once again. Thank you, Pastor, for your time. We truly appreciate you.
Merry Christmas to you and your people, too. Brother. Stay black, stay strong.
There it is right there. God willing, we'll see you on the other side in 2024. Thank you, Pastor.
God willing.
All right.
Amen.
All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about art. Let's talk about the luxury of art. As we have all these conversations about politics, we still got to cover the art and entertainment space and the culture there. We're going to be checking in with one brother who's doing his work to redefine how we're seen in the art space. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. This is an opportunity for us to be able to speak to our issues. Y'all better understand something real quick. We ain't going nowhere. It is a continual battle that we see all across this country. Revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be streamed.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
He makes sure that our stories are told.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
When you go into a barbershop in a 700 credit score neighborhood, black or white, they're talking about their ideas and they're talking about how they're going to move on those things. You go to a barbershop and a 500 credit score, equal brilliance, but bad culture, they're talking about other people. You go to a winner's barbershop, here's what I'm doing. You go to the barbershop of where people feel defeated, they're talking about other people, either celebrities or people they admire, but also often, I don't like Joe. I don't like Roland Martin. Let me tell you something. I don't understand people. How could you not like anything here you see? You should just be like, this is amazing. It's cool. You may not even like how he does it or how I do it, but it's like, you know what? They're succeeding. They're killing it. All you should be is, that's fantastic. But if I don't like me, I'm not gonna like you. If I don't feel good about me, it's hard for me to feel good about you. If I don't respect me, don't expect me to respect you. If I don't love me, I don't have a clue how to love you. And here's the big one. If I don't have a purpose in my life, I'm gonna make your life a living hell.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. And, you know, on this space, we always enjoy talking to artists, those who are pushing the envelopes and making us see the world differently. Well, my next guest is one who is in that same tradition. His artwork is one of a kind, folks. And I have to say, after looking at this brother's art, I'm very excited. We don't have as much time as I wanted to have with my brother, but we'll certainly be supportive of everything that he's doing. He is doing a fantastic work as a visual artist, and I want to welcome to the airways of The Culture and Black Star Network, my brother Neil Anthony Edwards. Neil, thank you so much, brother, for being with us this afternoon. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I'm good. No complaints at all. Just enjoying listening to the show and just learning and, you know, being inquisitive about what's going on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, speaking about what's going on, folks, I want to first put it out there. You have, brother, I've seen your art. It's top notch, Neil. It's top notch, brother Neil. Look, go to y'all, check his website out at NeilAnthonyEdwardsCollection.com. NeilAnthonyEdwardsCollection.com. At least when you have, let's pull that up for folks to check out. This brother's art. If we go to his gallery page, I want to show the type of art that he's putting out there. Let me see here. And as we pulled your artwork up, brother Neil, talk to us. What was your inspiration? What made you want to become a visual artist in the way that you're doing it?
Well, I was an artist from young. As a kid, I used to draw all the time. You know, to 4 or 5 in the morning, I'd be drawing. And I just loved it. I ended up going to art and design high school in Manhattan, in New York. Had to drop out. I had some family issues, and I ended up going to high school back in my hometown of Farajii. I ended up graduating from Washington Irving. At this time, I ended up being about 6'9", in high school. So everyone was really pushing me more towards the basketball than anything else. So. I stopped playing, I stopped drawing for a while and started, playing basketball. I ended up getting pretty good and actually made it to the NBA. Had a short run in the NBA with the Clippers and the New Jersey Nets back in about 2001, 2002. Went on to do other things after I left basketball and returned back to the art world in about 2019. But it was really during the pandemic that I really went into art seriously. And I posted up just a couple of pictures just saying, hey, this is my return back to the art world. And it went viral and people started clamoring to the page. People actually started asking for pieces, which wasn't really my intention. It was never intended to sell them or anything of that nature. And then people started approaching me to do galleries and things of that nature. And then I started to do galleries. I've done the Hamptons. I've done Miami Art Basel. I've done shows downtown Brooklyn by the Barclays Center and things like that, and it's just been real good so far. Very lucrative, and I'm very happy with the direction it's going.
How was that transition for you, Brother Neil, in terms of, I mean, you're saying people have told you, oh, because you're tall, you have some skills that you should be on the court versus being in the studio creating art. Like was that an issue? Did that was that a problematic for you in any type of way? Because, we often, and I'm sure you've heard the conversations that the options for Black boys in particular is always going into football, into basketball. And so a lot of our Black boys, I remember, I went to school for the arts in Baltimore. And so there were a number of Black boys. Some of my closest friends were visual artists. And they had to learn how to navigate through the chatter and the talk of them being a Black boy, growing up in the hood, and then deciding to be an artist. So how was that transition for you?
Yeah, it wasn't easy, because, art was my first love, so basketball was just something that I could do because I was tall and athletic. And, I grew up in, the 80s where, we played outside all day. So, we played football, basketball, tag, baseball. So I was always an athlete. I was always in great shape. And then growing to 6'10", 6'11", it was kind of like a no-brainer. I started out late though, because, I was into other things. I was also into the music industry. I had some short dealings with Bad Boy Records and Universal under the name of the rapper Genesis LXG. So that was a whole, separate life. So I've always been into, different things. I've been given a lot of different gifts, but art was always my first love. And as I navigated through the years, I started to, the way my stress levels raised, the way the world was going, it was like my most calmest and peaceful moments was when I was drawing as a kid. So I kind of wanted to get back to that space of blocking the world out and just creating. And the pandemic was really the perfect time for that.
That's amazing. I got this inspiration of this segment from your website. I just want to let you know. I call it the luxury of art. So you be like, well, damn, that's what I have on my site. It's coming from you, brother.
I love it. That's my motto. Listen, luxury begins with art. I believe that, if you look at throughout history, whether it's Africa or Europe, you see these beautiful castles, you see these mausoleums, you see these palaces. Art is a very, very integral part of these places. And, they go to great extent to, decorate their homes and collect art from around the world because they want to feel that feeling when they walk into every room and they want to feel the mosaic feel of that room. So I try to get our people to understand how important collecting art is. When I first started out, I really couldn't get people to understand. They're looking at me like, "Oh, why are you charging this? Why are you not charging Walmart prices?" And I'm like, "No, Walmart prices is not what I'm doing here. So you got to understand the value of art before you approach me and say, look, I want to collect something from you."
Right. So you already come into the table knowing what you're worth.
Yes. And you have to get them to understand that because it's not really their job to know. It's your job to convince them of your worth. And when I couldn't, at the beginning, I couldn't get them to buy pieces, $4,000. And they were like, that's, and then when you do these shows around the world and there's people that's paying you, 10 times that or triple that or whatever, you start to validate and say, yes, I knew my worth from the beginning because to be honest, Basquiat, his first painting sold for $200 to one of Madonna's best friends. That same painting sold for 100-something million later on. And, these are the things people have to understand.
That's crazy. Hey, bro, that's crazy, Brother Neil, because I'm in LA and they had the whole, if y'all haven't seen it, it's a dope exhibition. It's a traveling exhibition of Basquiat that I went to see. And it was amazing. It was amazing to see, his pieces. And I was happy to hear that his family was really instrumental in putting this exhibition. I think they did it in New York and they did it here in Los Angeles. So you're absolutely right. We got a couple of moments left. How far do you want to take your artistry at this point? I mean, you are a man of many talents. You can decide on many different paths, but you're deciding to stay committed to your artistry. So how far do you want to take it, brother?
I want to take it as far as I can take it. I think sky's the limit for what I'm doing. I'm really, impressed at how much I really haven't lost. I haven't lost a step from 20-something, 30 years ago. which is kind of ironic because I wasn't good at painting. I was good at drawing. So when I picked up the brushes, 4 years ago, I was amazed at how good I was with the brushes. And I'm still getting better. I look at like the pieces you were showing, those pieces were like when I first started out. The pieces that I have now, like on another level. So it's.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, it's just good to see, the progress, and I'm really, excited to see how far and how, far my abilities will go and how much better I'm going to get. So I have no plans of stopping. God willing, I'm going into 2024 swinging and coming out with some amazing pieces, and really excited to see the outcome of how far this can go.
Well, brother, I must just tell you firsthand, you are amazing. You got a new IG follower with me. You are doing some phenomenal work, brother. And to see a Black man like yourself who could have gone in many different spaces, but deciding to use your world to give us a different view of ourselves and our world is truly, truly amazing and admirable. So, folks, make sure y'all check out Brother Neil. NeilAnthonyEdwardsCollection.com.
Yes.
That's NeilAnthonyEdwardsCollection.com. I'm telling you.
That's also my Instagram, Neil Anthony Edwards Collection. Facebook is Neil Anthony Edwards Collection. And my Facebook is also under my old music name of Genesis LXG. I also have a very large art following on that as well. So you can check them all out.
Man, oh man, I think you probably like the Forrest Gump or something, bro. You live like 3-4 lives already.
Yeah. It's another life that I can tell you about that we'll do on another show. But, yeah.
I would love to hear it, big brother. Love to hear it. Hey, Brother Neil, I appreciate you for just sticking around for a few minutes. I know the timing was off a little bit, but I appreciate you for your patience. But thank you so much for joining us today, brother. And again, man, keep up the excellent work. And thank you for being a great role model that, you can go from the basketball to music to being art. Like, as long as you stay true and authentic to yourself, I think that makes a huge world of difference. And you're doing that, brother. So thank you for doing that. And more importantly, thank you for putting out some amazing art just for the culture, brother. We truly need it. I am a visual art lover. I love to see. I go to museums all the time. I love great paintings, man. I got big pieces and small pieces. So keep up the great work, brother. And we'll reconnect with you soon in 2024, okay?
Without a question. Thank you. Take care.
All right. Thank you, brother. Thank you. All right, folks, man. Neil Anthony Edwards. Make sure y'all check him out on his website. Again, NeilAnthonyEdwardsCollection.com. And you can see some dynamic pieces from this multifaceted, multi-talented Black man that we just talked to there. Man, oh man. All right, y'all. I got to get off of here, but I appreciate y'all for checking in. Make sure y'all do your due diligence and supporting us here on Black Star Network. Just go to our website today, download the app, and follow us on social media. And be prepared. Up next at 6 p.m. Eastern Time is Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow with Suzette Speaks here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. Have a great evening. Peace.